My name is Victoria Venere. I lead our America's Digital Experience team.
And I'm Kelly Taylor, also working for Cisco, and I'm the US Paid Social Lead for America's Growth Marketing.
So I'm going to walk you guys through the agenda, and Kelly and I will kind of tag team this. So to start, we actually wanted to go through what is omnichannel, and we'll talk about what social media is within the omnichannel experience. We're also going to show you some tangible, some real examples and results from us putting things in action. So we'll share with you some of our Cisco results. Then we'll talk about the SCORE algorithm. So the SCORE algorithm is actually a way to look at content through an algorithm lens. So when you're producing content, to kind of have a system to produce it. Kelly will take us through Cisco's social media personality, and then we'll talk about a Hall of Fail with some social media examples, which is kind of fun at the end.
Okay, so to start off, we're going to talk about omnichannel, and we actually want you guys to get into conversations with your groups here for a few minutes. So we'll go to the next slide here, and we want to talk about what is omnichannel marketing. This is a huge buzzword. You guys have probably talked about it during this conference over the last couple of days, in your meetings at work, other conferences that you go to, any marketing literature that you read. And it's used in a lot of different ways. So just for a few minutes right now, talk amongst yourselves, and then we want to come back as a group and hear from a few tables about what you think omnichannel marketing is in the context of digital marketing, and do you feel like your company is taking an omnichannel approach? Okay, we're going to come back together now, and we want to hear from you guys. So anyone want to start us off about how you define what omnichannel marketing is? What about this table? The same message in all channels, okay. Yeah, absolutely. So I think you guys are right on here. It's about having, like a cohesive message, we'll say, that is optimized for our audience and reaches our audience in any channel that we can influence them at the right time. So truthfully, since we're talking about Cisco's experience here, I would say although omnichannel is what we aspire to be like, we even have marketing people in our organization called omnichannel managers. Truthfully, we're still in this cross-channel phase where we have multiple methods of communication, but I don't think we've quite mastered yet the right message at the right time whenever our audience needs it. And so I think it would be good to see where you think your company fits into here, and then see what you need to change to get to this aspiration of omnichannel marketing. And I think one good way to do that is this omnichannel process. So I think the core message here is that we should be thinking about the customer experience at all times and constantly iterating, testing, and optimizing what is best for them. And so to start off with that, the first step would be to identify who your audience is, and then identify the channels in which they like to be reached out to, they like to communicate with. And then after that, we create the journey. We say, okay, they like to be communicated with this way. How are we going to work that into our journey? And then finally create the content that we want to make. I know oftentimes, especially at Cisco, my firsthand experience is that we just create content kind of willy-nilly, and then we see how can we shove that into a journey to make it work, whereas first and primarily thinking about our audience and then seeing what suits their needs. So we want to hear from you guys one more time. So we've talked about omnichannel in general, and we're wondering, where do you guys think social fits into this in terms of the funnel? So top, middle, bottom, you guys can just call it out. What do you think? All top, I heard. Anything else? Middle. Okay. So I think typically when we ask this question, someone would usually say top of the funnel, which is true, but we'd actually make the argument that social media has a place in the entire funnel. So in terms of reaching out to our audiences in this initial phase where they're just learning about us, they're getting educated about us, we usually focus on organic and paid social. And then as we move into the middle funnel, where users are becoming more familiar with us, they've purchased a product, they've downloaded it, they're getting their hands dirty. We think it's best to use organic social, meaning that we already have these audiences built up online, and so we're just continuing the conversation. And then finally, at bottom of the funnel, we actually like to leverage influencers and advocates to share what their experience is to their network.
All right. So we're going to talk about some real examples from Cisco. So we're going to go through measurement and results. We'll talk about some examples from how our content's resonated from a brand perspective, and then we'll show you how social's actually impacted bottom of the funnel. So we recently launched our Bridge to Possible campaign. So that's our brand campaign, and we launched that, I want to say, 6 months ago. So once we launched it, 65% of our converted users globally were served our Bridge to Possible ads. So when we say converted users, we mean people that registered or had signed up for a free trial. So that's what we drive within social I forget who said social's a full funnel. It's absolutely full funnel. 50% of the users converted within 6 days. And 30% of the users converted within 16 days. So out of the people that saw our brand campaign, there was a big chunk that actually ended up getting to bottom of the funnel. If you look at some of our results, we have I'm aware, I shop, and I buy. You'll notice that social media, the biggest chunk, is 51% it contributed to bottom of the funnel. So this is where it's interesting because a lot of people say, okay, it's top. I love that somebody called out that it's full funnel because we actually normally don't get that answer. So social for us is bottom of the funnel, driving free trials, driving registrations for us. And I love that we had the email session before this because we actually flow them in to email to get them to our nurture journey. And that works really well for us. The reason why, if you look at social media and I'm aware and I shop, and you look at the contribution here, 3% and 2%, and compared to some of our other paid media tactics, is because we like to keep the experience in platform versus driving them off platform. So all of our registrations, everything happens on either LinkedIn or on Facebook. These are some of the key performance indicators that we look at. So from a paid media perspective, these are all the things that we're looking at. At top of funnel, we look at new visits. At middle of the funnel, we're really looking at return visits. And at bottom of the funnel, it's sales and partner outreach. And then we optimize our campaign. So to Kelly's point, we're always iterating, we're always optimizing. The next thing that I want to talk to you guys about is our content algorithm. So we can't take full credit for it. We partner with LinkedIn, who are fantastic partners. They produce pieces of content on our behalf as well. So I'll talk you through, and it's actually their methodology. So full credit to LinkedIn for this one. How many of you have heard of Ray? All right. So I'll give you a bit of background, and I'm going to read it. So he is co-chair and co-chief investment officer of Bridgewater Associates. In 1975, he was a hedge fund manager. In 1982, he went broke. And he lost a lot of money for a lot of people. Now he's a billionaire investor. One of the things that he does is he uses algorithms for everything that he does. He uses algorithms to look at his people within the organization. He looks at algorithms to see how he should invest his money. And so what LinkedIn did was, hey, why can't we use an algorithm for content? So this brings us to the SCORE algorithm. So the idea here is S stands for structure. So you can templatize your content, and it's okay. Cisco, and Kelly alluded to this earlier, we operated like a newsroom. How much content can we get out, and how fast can we get it out? Now the argument is, and I 100% agree with this because we've seen success in this, is that you need structure. Templatize your content, and that's okay. C stands for contrarian. And Marcus talked a little bit about this too, is the idea of being able to challenge. If we don't challenge, then we're in a position where our content is just gonna add to all of that noise that's on the internet. And Cisco, I mean, as a company, we have a bit of a, we have an issue with sometimes taking a stance on certain things. I think now we're actually starting to come out a little bit more, and you'll see that in some of our content, our future content. O stands for ownable. Think of Coke, red and white, we all know. You need to be able to identify it, and you need to own that conversation. R stands for repeatable. You need to be able to repeat it because you should always be optimizing that content. It's not based specifically off of how much you can produce, but it's looking at the insights to optimize. I was at a conference, and one of the best, he claims he's one of the best in terms of writing blogs. He only has 30 blogs that are out, and what he does is he's constantly optimizing his blogs. So as opposed to creating, which is our mentality, how much can we create, he's like, no, screw that, we're not gonna do that. How do we just continue to look at where people are going, the insights and the data, and then adjusting? And then expertise. So you need to add a layer of expertise. We did this with one piece of content so far, and I think we're gonna expand the model. So we did this with data center. We created a piece of content, and we kept this piece of content in market for 8 months. And the reason why we kept it in for 8 months was because we saw that the data with regard to return visitors that we were driving, which was our benchmark, continued to go up. Again, we have this mentality in social, we have to pull it out and we have to be really quick to react. We don't. Look at the data and look at the insights. If you look at something like Cisco's cybersecurity report, year over year, we optimize it. We add a new level of expertise. Our audience looks at that and they say, oh, we know it's coming, we know it's coming. And we promote it on every channel. And it's our best piece of content. So just if you use this model for producing content, and especially the contrarian piece, then I think you'll be in a position where you'll stand out from the noise, which is really, really important in social. I'm gonna pass it over to Kelly now. She's gonna take us through Cisco's social media personality, which is what we actually built, and I'm really proud of it, so.
Yeah, so we have a very long and thorough deck about our social media personality that we would be happy to share with you, but I don't think anyone wants to sit through 75 slides, so we just picked a couple. And if you wanna go to the next slide. Thanks. So we realized as a US social media team, the global teams, different regions, that Cisco needed a social media personality. We wanted something that we knew would align to our brand, but also that would give us the ability to be creative within the boundaries of what really makes sense for social, so that we could have one voice and make sure that our customers' needs are met and that we have creative that aligns to it. So when we started this process, the first thing we did was took a look at our Cisco brand guidelines. We looked at who Cisco has been as a company historically, in the present day, where we're going, and we realized that these are our 5 main traits: intelligent, inspiring, genuine, friendly, and empathetic. And so after we took all of this into consideration and did a little soul searching, we came up with this personality called the approachable innovator, and I'll read it to you guys. Cisco is the person in the room who knows what to do next. We have the experience, the smarts, and the resources to solve problems through a measured application of technology. We dream big. We're practiced enough to understand what it takes to achieve our goals, and we have the wisdom to navigate the path. Cisco isn't a show-off. We don't need to be. We prove ourselves every day. And then also, because we live in the world that we do, we created a dating profile in case anyone here is familiar with, Tinder or Bumble, this is what Cisco would come up on those applications. So Cisco is 34 years old. The glass is half full, and I'm already filling up the other half. From the Bay Area, but I work everywhere. Love problem solving, traveling, and long conversations via router. My friends say I'm smart, I'm trustworthy, and I look good in blue. Yes, I'll fix your IT issues. I'll fix everyone else's IT issues too. I'm headed for the future at the speed of thought. Can you keep up? Swipe right. So we found that after doing this, that rather than it just being like a set of rules, it actually liberated us to make content that our audience liked, and we didn't have to discuss amongst all these different teams about what we wanted to produce, what was right. We have, this guiding star here. This also comes into play with our social listening efforts. We have a global social listening team that is always looking for ways to respond, and so this personality really guides them in how to respond to comments, how we want to be perceived, when we respond to something, what it looks like to really engage with our audience and stay true to who we are with this huge marketing organization behind them.
I would say too, the biggest challenge that we have within our organization is that we have over 500 social handles. And so what we had to do was we had to bring all the teams that were managing those social handles together. And this is why the personality was so relevant.
Right. And then just to end on a fun note, we wanted to go through some examples of the social media hall of fail. And so some other guiding principles of what not to do for your social media accounts. So this first idea, know what you're posting. This is an example from American Apparel. They actually posted this on Tumblr. And they were looking for a picture of fireworks and instead posted a picture of the destruction of the Space Shuttle Challenger. So one, know what you're posting, but it's also a good idea to actually own the images that you post. Two, don't be tone deaf. So you guys may have seen or be familiar with what a trending topic or hashtag looks like. And so we always highly recommend to research that before you throw your voice into the ring about how you want Cisco or your company or whatever to be associated with this hashtag. And so in this case, DiGiorno Pizza used this hashtag and didn't really realize that it was actually a conversation about domestic violence and giving survivors the platform to have a dialogue about it. And then finally, don't be funny when things aren't funny. So in this case, Kenneth Cole actually saw that Kyra was trending, did the research, and still decided to make light of it. So we overall recommend to have a good taste in the humor that you are trying to use, and just make sure that even if something is trending, you've done the research, make sure it's relevant to your brand. And then with that, we'll have some time for questions. If there's anything in the presentation that you are, want some more details on, we're happy to answer. Or anything we even didn't bring up, we can try to answer about social.
Is there anything, there we go. Any data around increased engagement through shorter hashtags or longer hashtags or ones that use capital letters or anything like that you could share?
Yeah, what we try and use one specific hashtag, which is we try to use the We Are Cisco hashtag. I don't have that data on us, but I will say the consistency with the hashtag really helps us drive the conversation. One of the things that we really had to educate our teams on is that you don't have to create a hashtag for everything. It's better to join the conversation than to create a new one. So that's kind of, I don't really have a lot of data on that, but that's what I would say is research it so that you can join that conversation versus trying to start your own.
Yeah, before you do it, you ever use a hashtag, you need to see what the other chatter is, and if it's relevant for your audience, and also know, I think it used to be kind of a trend to just hashtag a random word because you thought that maybe someone was looking up, marketing velocity, or yeah, babies, cats, random words, and then we found that there's not a lot of conversation and traction built there. So you have to do it make sense for the message that you're trying to share in your company.
Ladies, often a lot of companies are very nervous when employees and different folks that are associated with them are using social media on their behalf. But I know that that's something that other companies embrace. And what is your philosophy on that and having those employees help tell the story for you? And what are the pitfalls and advantages to that?
Yeah. Do you want me to tackle
Sure,
that one?
go ahead.
So we have we call it the Social Ambassador Hub internally. It's called Elevate, which allows us to be able to put specific pieces of content that we want our employees to drive on their personal social handles. So that helps us drive that conversation. Additionally, we actually have our employees sign a social policy.
Yeah.
So that we all adhere to the same things. We have them identify themselves as Cisco employees if they're talking on behalf of Cisco. I'd be happy to share the social policy if you're interested in taking a look at that. We also leverage LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And LinkedIn has this great full suite of products. So with LinkedIn Sales Navigator and Elevate, we can drive the conversation to specific saved leads that our employees save within their Sales Navigator licenses. So that also helps us kind of drive the conversation and pull everything together. But ultimately, it starts with the social media policy that they sign. Every employee has to do it, and as soon as you start at Cisco.
And Cisco's gone through kind of an evolution of this too. When we first had the Social Ambassador Hub, the thought was upload as much content as possible. Yeah. Everyone share everything, spam all your friends. And so then we realized that isn't the most strategic way of doing things. And so I would say what's fair game for everyone is usually brand content that's telling the overall Cisco story. It's very human, very personalized. And then we actually look to specific people to be, I would call them like an influencer or an advocate, someone that's actually a subject matter expert in a specific architecture or topic or whatever they want to talk about, rather than saying that, Kelly in marketing should be, sharing all of this information. My network of people on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter are all different. They don't want to hear that conversation coming from me, but if you're actually a subject matter expert, it makes sense. So I think that's the way that we've moved. It was a big transformation over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so we've built a network of, I think, 130 subject matter experts in each of our different areas to help drive our messaging. And we work with them on social selling, updating their profiles and things like that. Any other questions? Yes.
So when you created your kind of like brand, like voice, and did like the profile and everything, how long did that kind of process take?
I mean, forever.
Yeah. It did take a while. You want to speak to this?
Yeah, I mean, it took a while to get it off the ground. It was almost like all these different social teams, we all agreed that we needed one, that it just wasn't quite as cohesive as it needed to be, all these different voices that we had. And so I would say it almost took like a year of people, or maybe even longer, of people raising the issue before we finally sat down and said, okay, here's what we're going to do. And I mean, that probably took a couple of months. But at that point, we had all realized the value of it, and we were willing to go full force into establishing one.
Hello. I just Googled social media marketing for dummies to see what was out there. But do you have any recommendations on resources for learning this stuff?
Yeah, I would say first, and I would go back to the slide that you had with omnichannel, is understand your audience, understand where your audience is. So if they're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter, you don't have to start with everything. Maybe they're on YouTube. So get a good understanding of that. and then start to look at, I mean, what's that slide? We have it. Let's pull it up because I think we can probably walk through that piece.
The next are the channels that they like to.
Yeah, the channels. So that's the understanding, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, video.
Is that the beginning? Hold on.
Oh, that's fine. Don't worry about it. In terms of some things that I would say from a guidance perspective, I would say probably just do your research on your competitors' social media handles. That's a good place to start too. So I would say you can actually use this model when starting social, even for a small business. So start with the audience, identify the channels based on the insights from your audience, and then create what you think that experience should look like and ensure that it's integrated specifically within omnichannel. And then to Kelly's point, content always comes last. It's really important and part of the strategy, but it comes last.
Also, part of the strategy is being realistic and saying, do you have the resources right now to keep up with this? I think a lot of people, they just say, okay, social is the cutting edge, that's what we're gonna do, so we're just gonna do social and we're gonna create an account for everything. And it ends up to just creating a lot of accounts that don't have a lot of engagement. So I mean, like Victoria said, I'd pick one. I would pick one where you think your audience is based off of research that you've done, and social listening that you've done, and then start from there.
So not a question, but just a comment. Like if you're just getting started with social, I would also keep in mind Cisco has a lot of free resources. So our Marketing Velocity Central platform, there's a lot of different campaigns on there. And based on, who are your customers, who are you trying to target, there's a library of different assets. There's the opportunity to turn on social syndication, to post on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. So there's a lot of great resources out there, especially if you're just getting started, where you can actually, instead of having to recreate the wheel, leverage some of the things that Cisco's already put together.
So my question is, who as a partner or a VAR, who should we be following? Obviously Cisco.
Yeah. So
But in that arena, we want more followers, so who should we be following?
yeah, I would still say that it probably goes back to I don't know if you have, if your company has a social media presence, but I would say that it'll go back to social listening. So understanding based off of what your company focuses on, what people are most engaging with, and I would say try and follow those accounts, leverage some of that content. So doing some of that research.
Yeah, and that's I think, maybe more of like for Twitter specifically, well, all of them, but in term maybe of LinkedIn is if that's where you want to start to. If it's a personal account, like we talked about social selling earlier, those are people where you have, you have a real relationship with them. You've met them at an event like this, or you work with them, or you've met them in some other capacity and you can share knowledge. I think with Twitter too, you can really follow whoever you want as long as you think the content they have is insightful. Whereas, LinkedIn is more of a personal connection, whereas Twitter, you can follow anyone, test out if you like listening to their content, and then always unfollow them.
Yeah.
So I will tell you we have a list of people that we follow, and I find new people every week. My latest obsession is an ISV called Toast. They are in the retail ISV space, but they put out the coolest content, like top 10 things for this, top 5 things for that. And so what I do is just go out there and kind of look, and whenever I roll over a new company, I usually go and let me check that out. Also, Jay Bear puts out some really good content, and so we can probably, between Ian and Corey and myself and some of us that are fairly active there, we can probably give you a list of recommendations. Some of them super germane to what we do, and some of them are just fun. And so, like the little kid yesterday from Kanga was talking about Wendy's. He was cracking me up with his dudes every 5 minutes. But they have kind of a cool, fun channel, and sometimes I just put them in my feed. So I collect my feed together so that I can look at what I want to see. And then they are always a good kind of lighthearted jab fest at Chick-fil-A or McDonald's or whatever, too. So they're just kind of fun. But Toast is my latest that I think I'm jealous of whoever writes their content because they are really spot on.
Cool. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.